Well, so far I have given you an idea of the first struggle of marketing, that with the identity. Before we go to the next struggle, I want to talk about what I would treat strategy as for this course. How would I define strategy for this course? But let me start by asking you the question, what do you understand by strategy? Now, you may be thinking, strategy is a plan for doing things, it's a way, it's a path. Those would all be correct answers. And if, in fact, if you look at the recommended textbook that I have for this course, it gives you a very long and grandiose definition of strategy. In fact, many academics over many years have spent a lot of ink on how strategy should be defined. All that is good, except that I think a lot of these grandiose long definitions do not help a practical course like this. So, for the purpose of this course, I offer you a simplified and practical view or conceptualization of strategy. Simply put, strategy to us would be long-term and impactful decisions that typically take the form of choosing from among alternative courses of action. The basic question any strategy would have is, what should we do? So, for the purpose of this course, for the purpose of analyzing cases and analyzing articles, this is how we're going to look at strategy. Formulating strategy means making decisions that involve choices, and the basic question underlying those choices would be, what should we do? There will be alternative courses of action, and the final strategy or final decision could be to pick one of those courses of action or some combination of those. But not all what decisions are strategic in nature. So what we're going to see in the next slide is some idea on what I mean by strategic decisions. I will talk in terms of the strategy tactic continuum or scale, but before that, let's take a look at this table. On the left you have strategic decision making. On the right we have tactical decision making. Let's just focus on this cell for the moment. So if you look at this table, the three rows give you the three characteristics of strategic and tactical decision making. Let's look at the first major characteristic of what I call a strategic decision. Concerns broad choices with wide scope and long-term implications, and are of high impact. So strategic choices or strategic decisions have these three properties. They have wide scope, long-term implications, and have high impact. So what do I mean by scope here? Scope means the number of entities, the number of objects, people, etc. that the decision affects. So if your decision affects a lot of people, a lot of products in your portfolio, a lot of partners, etc., it's rather strategic in nature. Long-term, of course, makes sense. The decision has implications for how long it's going to affect those entities. And the impact or the intensity means how deeply those entities would be affected. And here are some examples. Example, a company's strategy to market its products based on quality as opposed to low price. Once you make that decision, it's a pretty solid decision. So for example, Godiva, the chocolatier, has made the decision that it's going to play on quality and not on low price. So that's a fairly solid decision, fairly impactful decision that has long-term implications for the company, and it affects the entire company, all its products, and how the company gears itself to present itself in the marketplace. A company's strategy to be always the first in any market and then leave the market at its peak. As it turns out that this is by and large the strategy of the company 3M, M as in Montana, 3M, and it's a strategy, again you can imagine it has a wide scope because it affects the entire company, all its processes, all the people, its partners, its channel members, and all its products. and it has long-term implications. Once you make this strategic choice, it is going to affect you for a long time, and of course it affects everything in the company, or affect them deeply. So these are some examples of strategic decision making. Now, tactical decision making, on the other hand, it's on the other side of the continuum based on these characteristics. So a typical tactical decision would deal with relatively narrower choices with narrower scope, shorter term implications, and lower impact in comparison to strategic decisions. Example, how to develop the perception of high quality in the target market. So once you have made the strategic decision that, hey, as Godiva, we're going to play on quality and not on price, the question arises as to how are we going to impress upon the target market that we are all about quality. That's a more of a tactical decision, especially what kinds of marketing mix decisions will help. Now, I hope most of you are aware of these terms, marketing mix. They're also labeled as the 4 P's of marketing, P as in Peter, 4 P's of marketing: product, place, promotion, and price. As it turns out that the 4 P's of marketing are actually very tactical in nature. They're of narrower scope, with shorter term implications and lower impact compared to strategic decisions. Now, that's why I think of it as a continuum, because everything is in comparison to another decision. So a decision is either more strategic or more tactical. Okay. Another example of a tactical decision: what kinds of promotions do we need to run to give people perceptions of low price? So for example, if a brand has made the strategic decision of positioning itself in the marketplace based on low price, what can it do? Specific things, what kind of specific things can it do to impress upon the target market that it's all about the low price? That's more tactical. Okay? So seen this way, tactical decision making helps implement strategic decision making. The next characteristic is frequently the strategic decision becomes the what question. What should we do? For example, I've given you some examples here, but another example is what should we do? Should we drop a brand from our portfolio? Should we add a brand? Should we enter a market? Should we not enter a market? These are all what questions, right? In comparison, a tactical decision frequently becomes what I would call the how question. That is, how should we do what we chose to do in our strategy? So in the strategy, you choose to do something. What should we do? And the tactic tells you how you should do what you have chosen to do. Again, you can use this example. So tactics help implement strategies, right? The third big characteristic, and there could be more, folks. I've just focused on these few, but there could be more characteristics. Strategic decisions are harder to change. Okay? For example, Apple, once they have made the decision long back that they're going to play on quality and status and brand prestige, etc., how easily can they alter their strategy based on exclusivity? It's very hard. So once a strategic decision is made, I'm not saying it cannot be changed, but it's very hard to change it, right? In comparison, a tactical decision is relatively easier to change. For example, if one type of ad does not work, you can try another one. The change will be costly, and it may not be terribly easy to change per se, but it's easier compared to a strategic decision. So, taken together, if you look at these characteristics, what I'm trying to impress upon you is that when you take a look at a decision, you can probably make a judgment about how strategic the decision is versus how tactical it is.